What's up, everybody? I'm Chase Lee, reporting for DallasMovieScreenings.com, and I got another movie to review for you guys, and that would be Widows. Now, this one comes from 20th Century Fox, before they're, overtaken by a shirtless mouse and piano gloves, but for right now, they are still 20th Century Fox. It is directed by Steve McQueen. It's actually co-written by him as well, and it's also co-written by Gillian Flynn, and, I looked for a couple hours on the internet yesterday, or whatever, to try to figure out how to pronounce her name, either Gillian or Jillian. I'm going with this one, so if I'm wrong, please blast me down in the comments down below. So this one tells the story of widows, played by Viola Davis or Michelle Rodriguez, Elizabeth Debicki, or Carrie Coon, and their husbands are into criminal activities, so to speak, of the money-stealing type. And so, the wives really have no idea what they do, or they just don't want to admit that they're doing stuff illegally. They just kind of lead comfortable lives because their husbands steal money, and they, make sure their wives are taken care of. And then there's one tragic job where all the husbands die. And so Viola Davis, who is actually Liam Neeson's widow, she finds this little book of his past hit jobs, future hit jobs, and she realizes that he owed a certain person a lot of money. And so she's forced into this situation where she needs to band the other wives together for help to, split it evenly and do this one last job so she can pay off her husband's final debts. And so that's where our story kind of picks up. And so, going into this movie, I saw the trailers, absolutely love the trailers. I love Steve McQueen's work, whether you want to talk about 12 Years a Slave, which he won the Oscar for. It won Best Picture, which was 5 years ago, by the way. Crazy. And, of course, he did stuff like Shame, which is a brilliant film about sex addiction. And then, of course, he did Hunger. Both of those, of the latter, starred, Michael Fassbender. And then, of course, Gillian Flynn's on a roll, too. I first noticed her work when she wrote Gone Girl, which is basically a Lifetime movie, but it was done by David Fincher to where it was elevated into, great movie status. I never would have imagined that. She's had some flops or, kind of so-so movies. I didn't really care for Dark Places that much, the one with Charlize Theron. But she does stuff like A Sharp Objects earlier this year, which was a limited series, which was so well done with Amy Adams. It's on HBO if you get a chance. And so now she's doing another one with Widows. And the way I can describe her work is that she takes all these kind of really damaged female characters, and we kind of get to see their dark sides a little bit. We get to see the darkness of humanity and all the stuff that has happened to these people, but in a way she writes her characters to where they become badass at the end, to where you see them kind of overcome their obstacles, their hurdles, their trauma in a way where towards the end you just want them to either solve this mystery that they're trying to solve or go after the people that have done them wrong. And it's just, I don't know, the way she writes women in her script, it's just kind of empowering, and I really like her style, even if sometimes, like a Gone Girl, it's just, you definitely don't want to root for her in that movie, but Rosamund Pike's character, but she tends to write, really interesting female characters with a lot of trauma and a lot of, behind the scenes of the darkness of humanity. And I don't know, it's just, she's very kind of gritty, lifetimey type of writer, and I dig her work. That's not a knock on her by any means. So anyways, I saw the trailer to this, loved it, loved the people involved, whether behind the camera, in front of the camera, and I gotta tell you guys, I love this movie. This is a top 10 for sure, unless I can see something else that can knock this out of the way. This is one of those movies that floored me from start to finish, and it fired on all cylinders, whether you want to talk about the writing and how just entertaining it was on that aspect, but also being this deep, rich character movie within the wives that got to pull off this heist, or even the B storyline with like Colin Farrell or Brian Tyree Henry and Daniel Kaluuya, with the political angle with this movie. I never would have expected that. But the political stuff was also a huge draw. It was just something that kept you interested while the A storyline was going on. And it all comes together towards the end in such a seamless fashion that you're like, if any other director were to take this on, it would not succeed. And so when you take Gillian's work and you give it to a Steve McQueen or you give it to a David Fincher, they're going to elevate it. And that's what Steve McQueen does. He takes his sensibilities as a director, really makes us focus on the characters at hand, and really focus on these widows who are going through such grief and desperation that we kind of just see them in their last moments, almost as if they're just not there anymore. They're not. Ever since their husbands have died, they've just been kind of off, and then a lot of bad things have happened to where they just kind of band together and just do this one final thing to like stick it to some people, and it's just it's really great to kind of see them start at the bottom and end up at the top. And when you're dealing with grief and this kind of like push of desperation to how far someone will go to kind of fight back, I found that to be an extremely satisfying arc between all the characters. I mean, when you talk about Viola Davis and how she felt kind of weak when her husband died, she didn't really know what was going on. And then when she was pressured into owing someone money, you saw the switch in her mind, you saw the switch in her character, and that's the kind of fine-tuned work that Steve McQueen does. And on top of all that, he combines the kind of independent, character-driven sensibilities, but also makes it like a blockbustery action film. Now, it's not like this big-budgeted action film that just has all these special effects, but the action in the film feels grounded. It feels gritty. It feels like you're actually watching these things happen, and it's not just some overblown green screen special effects work. So, on top of the action, you have this like interesting, camera work that Steve McQueen also kind of throws out there that kind of does stand apart from blockbuster movies. He doesn't have to show you 6 different angles and cut to like 18 different shots. Within one sequence, he maybe 2 or 3 max, and that's where the kind of grittiness and the groundedness of the action kind of comes into place. But it plays like an entertaining movie, like an entertaining little blockbuster. So it's like a great mixture of a character movie and then also this really kind of really gripping heist thriller type of movie. And so Steve McQueen does a fantastic job, and then Gillian Flynn with her writing. The acting is phenomenal. Viola Davis can do no wrong. She is the type of actress to where, even in Suicide Squad, where that movie I do not like, but she gives 110% as Amanda Waller. She does that again here. So even if it's a comic book, or if it's a movie like this, Viola Davis is always on her game. She's always a scene stealer, and that's never a bad thing. But just to see her kind of be the leader of this group was really satisfying to watch because she was so badass in the movie, but there was also a lot of heartbreak within her, and she can pull both of those off, almost kind of pulling from her Amanda Waller character from the badass part, and then pulling from like a Fences type of performance where you get to see that kind of heartache and that pain and the loss that she has endured throughout her life. And it's just a really well-rounded, complex character. And even with her hard edges, at the very end, it's hopeful for her character. Even with all the stuff that went down, it's hopeful. And it's really amazing to watch. Elizabeth Debicki is outstanding. I've never seen her beyond the Cloverfield Paradox and the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. And so this was the type of role that showed me so much range, because she was kind of like Viola Davis in a way where like she started out down here, she ends up here, she finds herself. she gains confidence, she gains strength, and you're like, yes, stop letting people push you around. Like, you need to fight back, and it's so great to watch her. And I know it's a little side thing, but I do like the fact that they didn't try to hide her height. She is a very tall woman, and typically in movies, like, they'll, prop actors up if they're really short, or they'll try to shorten them if they're really tall, or they'll, do camera angles to make sure actors, are kind of eye level or whatever. No, they embrace her tallness, and I also kind of enjoy that. Also kind of adding to the kind of grounded realness of her character. Michelle Rodriguez is fantastic as well. She gives one of those performances where you're like, you know what? Yeah, you in the Fast and Furious movies, but you can act. So, I mean, she does a fantastic job. Carrie Coon's not in it that much, but she does a very interesting role. And she's Carrie Coon. She's always great. She was also in Gone Girl. There you go. So, going to the guys now, Liam Neeson, one of the best roles I've seen from him in a long time. I'm not going to reveal what he does, but, since he's the leader of the group, he definitely has more screen time than the other gentlemen. I don't know the other two, I got to be honest with you, but I do know John Bernthal's in it, Mr. Punisher himself, and, he's there. I'm not going to say he did a great job or a phenomenal job or whatever like everyone else. I mean, he was good in the role, but he only had like 2 scenes, so it's, it's one of those things where the heist that goes wrong happens so early on in the movie that, yes, the guys are there in a couple scenes, maybe some in flashbacks, but it doesn't really go anywhere beyond that. It's mainly about the women, but I still wanted to give a shout out to everyone. Going to the political side of the movie, Brian Tyree Henry, Daniel Kaluuya, Colin Farrell, and even Robert Duvall. Those 4, what powerhouses they are. I mean, all 4 of them are already great actors on their own, but like, just this movie, man, it just, something about Steve McQueen and the way he directs his actors and really makes them give 110% is just, it's really inspiring to watch, because yeah, we see all these actors in movies all the time. I mean, we just saw Daniel Kaluuya not only in Black Panther earlier this year, but he got an Oscar nomination for Get Out from last year. This is probably one of the better roles I've seen him in. So he's just getting better and better, and then, of course, the others are always great, but it's just like, those guys felt so in tune to their role. I believe their characters. I believe that they were these people on screen and not these actors. I felt like they were these politicians or these friends of politicians. And Daniel Kaluuya is one of the scariest people I've seen all year in a movie. One of the best year's villains, for sure. So, acting, fantastic. Hans Zimmer, I said Zimmer almost. Hans Zimmer did the music. Didn't see that coming. Music is also great. It's heart pounding when it needs to be. It's just has this really kind of just old school kind of thriller aspect to it. Just, kind of a fast pace to it, and just really just kind of keeps you going and keeps you invested. And I mentioned the camera work. It's very unique in some scenes. Some scenes that you would not expect that camera angle to be at, and it just makes it all the more interesting visually to go along with the story. I honestly have nothing bad to say about this movie. I mean, yeah, you could say that some of the guys got stiffed in their storyline, and you kind of wanted to see more scenes with them and their wives, but it's not really about that, and there's honestly nothing really wrong with this movie that makes me have to bring it up and go, yeah, this is a problem with the movie. I mean, I loved it. It's just one of those things to where if you love cinema, you love film, you love Steve McQueen's work, you love Gillian Flynn's work, you love all these actors' works, I think you're going to be satisfied. It is, like I said, a perfect mixture of an entertaining adult thriller, blockbustery type of movie with many layers of depth and character, like, penetrated throughout that story. And that's what makes it a very well-rounded movie, and not just, one thing. It's just a very complex film. one of my favorites of the year. I'm going to say it right now. I don't give the plus unless I think I can feel it in my gut. I might have to watch it a second time, but I'm very comfortable with saying that Widows gets an A for me. Absolutely loved it. I don't know how many times I could say that, but I loved it. So what did you guys think of Widows? Have you even heard of it? Comment that place, drop them all in my face, and let me know. And as always, guys, I'm Chase Lee reporting for DallasMovieScreenings.com, and tune in next time for whatever I review next. I will see you guys later.